Okay, so if I were to ask you, who are the absolute power players driving this whole AI revolution right now? The names defining everything.
Well, you'd immediately think OpenAI, right? And then the huge capital folks like Microsoft, maybe NVIDIA for the chips. Absolutely.
Exactly. But there's this other name, one that honestly, until very recently, felt almost, well, old-fashioned. Oracle.
And that contrast, yeah, that's really the perfect place to start this deep dive. The old image versus this new reality.
Right.
For decades, I mean, Oracle was legacy tech, enterprise stuff.
Super reliable, though.
Oh, absolutely. Essential for government back offices, banks, you name it. Unquestionably vital. But cutting edge, no, not really.
Definitely not the cool kid.
No, they were widely seen as, the database dinosaur.
Right.
Reliable, but maybe a bit slow.
And yet somehow the whole story just completely flipped, an incredible, almost violent pivot, you could say.
That's a good way to put it.
Oracle has managed to transform itself from that legacy provider into what you're calling an indispensable utility for the AI age.
Right. And that's our mission today, isn't it? To really analyze how this huge corporate gamble actually worked, how it turned Oracle into this central pillar, really, of the whole AI supply chain.
We're going to unpack the mechanics, how they pulled it off.
Yeah, we're digging into how this pivot led to, the biggest cloud deal in history, a $300 billion 5-year commitment just from OpenAI.
Staggering numbers.
Yeah.
And we have to tease this up front, the financial fallout. It's kind of unbelievable.
Go on.
This strategy caused such a massive market surge that for this tiny historic window back in September 2025, Oracle's co-founder, Larry Ellison, his personal wealth climbed so high he actually, briefly, became the richest person in the world.
Wow.
Overtook Elon Musk.
Wow. Just for a moment, but still incredible.
Incredible. And this story, it's crucial for you listening because, as the source material really lays out, Oracle's success isn't about writing better AI code or, building a new chatbot.
No, not at all. This is about the real bottleneck, the thing everyone needs. It's about selling the raw power.
Compute power.
Compute, specialized storage, and the, frankly, enormous amounts of energy needed to make these huge models like GPT even possible.
So the big bet Oracle made.
The core bet was simple. Compute, not code, is king. And they were right.
Okay, let's unpack that transformation then.
Yeah.
Because we really need to start with where Oracle was coming from. Back in the late 2010s, if you were talking tech innovation.
Oracle wasn't usually top of the list.
Right. They were in that, reliable but kind of slow bucket. They were all about those massive, complex, sometimes maybe a bit clunky.
But utterly essential.
Utterly essential enterprise databases. The bedrock of the corporate back office, really.
Yeah, they were like the necessary plumbing. Locked in huge government deals, financial institutions relied on them, and investors loved it, of course.
Why is that?
Because it generated predictable, massive cash flow, huge stability, but they just didn't have that growth story that their cloud rivals had.
You mean like AWS and Azure?
Exactly. Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure. They were seen as the future of infrastructure. Oracle looked, stuck, reliant on older tech, sometimes proprietary systems.
So, okay, how do they bridge that gap? How does a database dinosaur become a compute king? It couldn't have happened overnight.
No, definitely not. It started sort of quietly, but then it ramped up really aggressively around 2023, maybe into 2024. And the focus was Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI.
Yeah. OCI.
And the genius part here, I think, wasn't trying to just copy AWS or Azure, offering hundreds of different general cloud services. That wasn't the plan.
What was it then?
The strategic move was finding a niche, maybe an underserved area, and just dominating it, a vertical.
And that vertical was high-performance computing specifically for AI.
Precisely. They laser-focused OCI on AI workloads. Because training these huge AI models, it needs massive parallelism, doing lots of things at once. It needs incredibly fast networking, super low latency.
And tons of GPUs.
And huge blocks of GPU power. Oracle realized, hey, if we can build an environment perfectly tuned for this incredibly hungry workload, we can attract the most demanding customers out there.
Okay, so this big pivot, it seems like it involved two main shifts, leveraging their old strengths, but also chasing this new AI future. Let's get into the first one, actually putting AI into their traditional database stuff.
Right, Shift A. This was both smart defense and offense, I'd say. They started embedding AI capabilities right into their core database products.
Why was that smart?
Well, they saw companies like OpenAI training these massive public models, but every big company, think banks, pharma, defense contractors, they all have their own secret sauce, right? proprietary, super sensitive data.
Stuff they'd never just hand over to a public AI.
Exactly. They desperately wanted to use LLMs on this data, but they couldn't risk it leaking out into some general-purpose public cloud. Security was paramount.
So Oracle gave them the tools to do it securely, within their own walls, so to speak. You mentioned things like Oracle AI, vector search, and select AI. How do those actually work for, say, a bank listening right now?
Okay, think about AI vector search. When an AI, like an LLM, processes information, it turns words, concepts, everything into these mathematical things called vectors.
Okay.
Vector search lets a company take its huge, complex internal database, maybe petabytes of contracts or research papers, and index it all into these vectors, but securely, inside Oracle's controlled environment.
Keeping it safe.
Keeping it safe. Then, using something called Select AI, they can ask questions of that data in just plain English. Summarize all research findings on compound X from the last 5 years, and the LLM can answer using their private data without that sensitive info ever leaving the Oracle security bubble.
So for a drug company, they could instantly query like 20 years of secret clinical trial data without worrying about competitors seeing it.
Precisely. That's a massive advantage. It makes perfect sense for their existing customer base. It's an upgrade path, but one that respects their intense need for security.
Makes sense. But, okay, the story that generated hundreds of billions, the thing that briefly made Ellison the richest man, that's got to be Shift B, becoming the raw compute backbone.
Yes. Shift B is the huge infrastructure gamble. This is where Oracle basically realized the real constraint wasn't the software anymore. It was physics. It was raw power.
Physics? How so?
Training models like GPT-4 or whatever comes next, GPT-5, it just requires monumental, like unprecedented horsepower. We're talking vast arrays of the very latest NVIDIA GPUs.
Not just a few thousand.
Oh no, hundreds of thousands, and they need to be connected by specialized, super-fast networking like InfiniBand to work together efficiently.
And building that out,
Yeah.
that requires capital spending way beyond what a normal software company would even consider, right?
Absolutely, way beyond. They basically doubled down, started aggressively buying up GPUs, which were already scarce, and building these enormous data centers that just consume incredible amounts of energy.
So the key insight here from analysts was that Oracle deliberately chose not to compete head-on in building the best AI model itself.
Exactly. They decided to be sort of technology agnostic, at least at the high end of infrastructure. They didn't try to build their own competitor to Google's Gemini or Meta's Llama.
Their pitch was simpler.
Much simpler. It was basically, we will be the power plant. We'll provide the infrastructure for everyone. OpenAI, Elon Musk's xAI, Meta, whoever comes next. It doesn't matter who wins the AI model war, they'll still need us to power it.
It really is the ultimate picks and shovels play for the AI gold rush.
You heard.
The gold is the fancy AI model, but the most critical, expensive shovel needed to dig for it is that high-performance compute.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And that realization, that focus on being the shovel provider, directly leads to the really revolutionary part of their strategy. The financial model itself. This is where Oracle basically stopped acting like a software company selling licenses or subscriptions.
And started acting like what?
And started acting more like a regulated infrastructure investment firm.
Right.
Or maybe a utility company.
I find this part fascinating. This reframing of Oracle as one of these essential utilities for the AI age. They're not selling code features anymore. They're selling reliable, metered, high-performance power. Like the electric company sells kilowatt hours.
That framing is absolutely key because it lets them structure these massive deals based on utility principles, not software sales principles.
How does that work in practice?
Well, think about the demand from the big AI labs. It's insane. It's immediate. They need huge GPU clusters, like yesterday.
Right. The urgency is off the charts.
So Oracle can go to them and negotiate deals that basically eliminate Oracle's own financial risk up front while guaranteeing long-term stability for Oracle.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics of these deals because we're not talking about your standard monthly software subscription here. This is hundreds of billions changing hands.
Right. These contracts, they operate less like traditional software as a service, much more like giant infrastructure investments. Oracle takes on the huge initial cost.
The CapEx.
The massive capital expenditure, yes. They commit billions up front to buy those incredibly expensive, hard-to-get NVIDIA GPUs. And they build these gigantic gigawatt-scale data center facilities. These things are essentially custom-built factories for AI.
That initial outlay is just immense. So how does Oracle protect itself from that huge risk? This must be where that innovative contract structure comes in the take-or-pay thing.
That is the secret sauce, the take-or-pay mechanism. It's brilliant, really.
Explain it.
Okay, these are long-term deals, typically 5, maybe 10 years. The AI client, like OpenAI, commits to buy a certain absolutely massive amount of compute capacity and the energy to run it,
Regardless of whether they actually use it all.
regardless of whether they fully utilize every single GPU hour. It's like booking a block of hotel rooms for 5 years straight. You pay whether you sleep in them every night or not. It's an advanced reservation for capacity.
Wow. So if OpenAI signs that $300 billion contract,
That money is effectively guaranteed future revenue for Oracle. It doesn't matter if OpenAI's usage dips for a month or two. The revenue stream is locked in.
so hang on, the risk of maybe overestimating how much compute you'll need in the future, that risk gets shifted almost entirely away from Oracle, the provider.
And on to the AI companies, the users.
That's incredible.
Exactly. And that transfer of risk is precisely why this model gives Oracle what feels like an immediate yield on their massive investment. They know that the debt they take on to buy the GPUs and build the data centers, it's going to be covered by these guaranteed future payments from the clients.
It gives them cash flow certainty right now.
Immense certainty,
Yeah.
which of course makes the stock market incredibly happy. And that confidence allows Oracle to borrow more, to build faster, to expand even more aggressively.
It feeds itself.
It becomes this virtuous cycle, all built on the foundation of guaranteed demand for AI infrastructure.
And you can see that certainty reflected in what became the most important number for investors looking at Oracle, their RPO, remaining performance obligations.
That RPO number is everything. It's the proof.
Yeah.
Yeah, that RPO figure, the total value of future contracted revenue that became the ultimate validation of this whole financial strategy. But hold on, before we dive into that massive number itself, we really need to focus on the specific partnerships that actually built it up.
Right. The deals themselves and leading the pack, the one that basically set the global price for high-end AI compute, that has to be the commitment with OpenAI.
Oh, absolutely. That's the crown jewel in Oracle's pivot, no question.
How did that relationship develop? It seemed to escalate really quickly.
It did. It started back in June 2024. At first, Oracle and Microsoft were actually working together. The idea was to extend Microsoft's existing Azure AI capacity onto Oracle's OCI, sort of like an overflow valve to handle immediate demand spikes from OpenAI.
So it was supplementary at first,
Yeah.
helping Microsoft out.
Kind of. But by 2025, things changed dramatically. Oracle started making commitments on a scale that's just hard to comprehend. Almost geological, as you said.
How big are we talking?
By July 2025, Oracle had promised OpenAI an astonishing 4.5 gigawatts GW of data center capacity, just for them.
4.5 gigawatts.
Yeah.
Help us understand that scale. What does that mean?
Okay, a gigawatt is a billion watts. It's a massive unit of power. 4.5 GW. That's roughly the energy output of several large nuclear power plants running flat out.
Wow.
So this isn't just some standard cloud deal. This is basically Oracle building dedicated immense energy infrastructure specifically for one single client's computing hunger.
And then came the big one, the culmination of all this capacity talk in September 2025.
Yes, September 2025. That's the moment, really, the inflection point, where Oracle went from being just a major player to arguably the market leader in this specific niche. That's when they finalized that record-breaking $300 billion 5-year deal with OpenAI.
$300 billion.
Sources are clear. It's the single largest cloud contract in the history of technology, period.
And what does that money actually buy OpenAI? It's not just server racks, is it?
No, it's much more than that. It guarantees OpenAI priority access to the scarcest resource on Earth right now, the absolute latest generation of high-end NVIDIA GPUs, whether it's the H200s or the newer B100s. It's guaranteed access to capacity that, frankly, no startup, no matter how well-funded they seem, could possibly hope to secure on their own at that scale.
And delivering on that promise means building completely new, massive facilities. We've heard this nickname thrown around, Stargate, for these construction projects. Gives you a sense of the ambition.
The Stargate build-out, yeah. It's truly transformative stuff. We're talking a huge new data center construction sites popping up across multiple U.S. states, Texas, Pennsylvania, New Mexico, Ohio, others too.
Why spread them out like that?
Well, partly for risk mitigation, natural disasters or power grid issues in one area, and also for diverse energy access. But the sheer cost is just astronomical.
So big, in fact, that Oracle couldn't shoulder it all themselves, even with their improved cash flow. They needed a partner.
That's right. They brought in a heavyweight co-financing partner, SoftBank.
Ah, SoftBank. Makes sense.
Yeah, and it's part of an even bigger, almost mind-boggling goal. Oracle and SoftBank together have committed to co-financing 5 additional huge facilities. The overall plan is reportedly worth something like $500 billion.
$500 billion. For what?
The ultimate goal is to create a global network totaling 10 gigawatts of AI computing capacity. 10 gigawatts.
Good grief.
And SoftBank's involvement is crucial. They don't just bring money, they bring expertise in managing these huge global infrastructure projects, real estate acquisition, all the complex stuff you need when you're basically trying to build and power facilities the size of small towns.
Okay, so OpenAI is clearly the anchor tenant, the cornerstone. But you said Oracle's strategy relies on being agnostic, right? Serving everyone. So who else is feeding this beast?
They're really positioning themselves at the center of the whole ecosystem. We know from reports they're negotiating what sounds like a $20 billion deal with Meta.
For Facebook and Instagram's AI needs.
Presumably. But maybe more importantly, they have these critical partnerships with the hardware guys themselves, like NVIDIA and AMD. And increasingly, they're even cooperating with rivals, including Google Cloud, in certain areas, maybe linking capacity or offering specialized services. Oracle has successfully made itself almost foundational.
Which sounds great for Oracle, but this centralization, this flow of money between just a few huge players,
Yeah.
it's led to some criticism, hasn't it? Especially online, people talking about this Ouroboros loop.
Yes, the Ouroboros loop. It's a really compelling metaphor, isn't it? That ancient symbol of the snake eating its own tail.
What's it describing in this context?
It's used to describe how value seems to be concentrated and maybe even inflated within this very tight circle of basically 3 types of key players: the AI model makers, the infrastructure providers, and the chip manufacturers.
Okay, break down the flow for us, step by step. Where does the money start?
Okay, step 1. The big AI labs, like OpenAI, raise absolutely enormous sums of capital. Billions and billions from venture capitalists, strategic partners like Microsoft. This gives them these huge valuations, hundreds of billions on paper.
Got it. Step 2.
They immediately turn around and spend a huge chunk of that freshly raised capital on buying guaranteed long-term compute capacity from the infrastructure providers, primarily Oracle in this high-end niche.
And that massive spending validates Oracle's strategy.
Instantly, it validates the pivot, boosts their RPO, drives up Oracle's stock price.
Okay. Step 3.
Step 3. Oracle, now flush with cash and guaranteed future revenue, uses that money to place massive orders for billions of dollars worth of the latest, greatest GPUs from manufacturers like NVIDIA.
Which in turn drives NVIDIA's revenue and stock through the roof.
Exactly. And then, step 4 closes the loop. NVIDIA, sitting on huge profits and piles of cash from selling all those GPUs, often takes some of that money and invests it back into the AI model makers like OpenAI.
Ah. So they invest in their own biggest customers.
Right. Which further boosts the AI labs' valuations, gives them even more capital, which they can then spend on more compute capacity from Oracle, who then buys more chips from NVIDIA.
Who then invests back into the AI labs. The snake eats its tail.
Precisely. It's a continuous self-reinforcing circle. It fuels the growth and valuations of all 3 participants simultaneously.
It's a mechanism that definitely ensures growth within that ecosystem. But the critics argue it sort of insulates these giants from normal market forces, right? And makes it incredibly tough for anyone smaller to break in.
It absolutely does. It cements Oracle's position right in the middle as this essential exchange point. They are the conduit connecting the capital markets, the hardware, and the AI model builders. They found the perfect spot, the highest traffic intersection for the money flow. And it really is the sheer size of those deals, especially that $300 billion OpenAI contract that translated so directly into that explosive financial validation for Oracle we talked about. We absolutely need to zero back in on that key metric, RPO, remaining performance obligations.
Right, RPO. Generally, that means future revenue that's already been contracted, deals signed on the dotted line that the company expects to recognize as income over the next few years.
Exactly. And Oracle's RPO number just swelled. It ballooned to an unprecedented $455 billion. $455 billion.
That's just a staggering backlog.
It is. But what makes Oracle's RPO figure so much more powerful, so much more reassuring to investors compared to, say, a traditional software company's backlog is the nature of those contracts we discussed.
The take-or-pay structure.
Exactly. You know, traditional Software subscriptions, maybe they can be adjusted down, maybe even canceled sometimes, depending on the terms. But Oracle's RPO, a huge chunk of it anyway, is tied to physical, dedicated, locked-in infrastructure spending commitments.
It's not theoretical usage, it's reserved capacity.
Right. That $455 billion represents years and years of future cash flow that's essentially already accounted for, secured against these massive physical assets they're building.
It's like the ultimate confirmation vote from the market. Oracle had successfully pre-sold years of the AI revolution's future compute demand. So what happened in the market when they announced that huge OpenAI deal and revealed that RPO number?
The reaction was immediate, and it was monumental. You have to remember that moment, September 2025. On September 10th and 11th, just 2 days, Oracle's stock price soared somewhere between 36% and 43%.
In 2 days. For a company of that size and age.
Yeah, think about that. A company founded way back in 1977, the one everyone called a corporate dinosaur, suddenly experiences its biggest stock market rally since 1992.
Wow, that's a 33-year gap between surges like that? Unbelievable.
And that surge, it didn't just boost the stock price itself, it pushed Oracle's total market capitalization decisively past the $900 billion mark.
$900 billion.
The market basically, officially repriced Oracle. It said, okay, you are now a fundamental AI infrastructure leader, put them right up there, alongside the big cloud players like AWS and Azure, a position that honestly seemed impossible just, say, 3 years earlier.
And this huge stock surge brings us directly to that really astonishing personal finance story, the one that grabbed headlines everywhere, the Larry Ellison blip.
Right, the Ellison blip, because Larry Ellison still owns a huge chunk of Oracle, right? Something like 43% of the company.
Still has massive skin in the game.
Absolutely. So when the company's stock jumps nearly 40% in just 2 days, the impact on his personal net worth is just historic. On that one day, September 10th, 2025, his paper wealth jumped by over $100 billion.
Over $100 billion in a single day. It's almost impossible to even wrap your head around that number.
It really is. And that pushed his estimated net worth up to around $400 billion.
$400 billion.
Which meant that for that brief, really intense moment in time, Larry Ellison actually overtook Elon Musk to become technically the richest person on the planet.
Wow. A truly embolic history-making moment. He became only the second person ever, after Musk, to cross that $400 billion threshold, even if just temporarily.
Exactly. Now, the ranking didn't last long. Stock markets fluctuate wildly. But the moment itself symbolized everything this pivot had achieved. The perceived database dinosaur hadn't just roared back.
It had reached the absolute financial summit of the world.
Fueled entirely by this massive bet on infrastructure, on power.
Okay, so we've really laid out the incredible rewards here. The locked-in billions in revenue, that historic stock surge, Oracle cementing its place at the top table. But, any bet this big, this audacious, it always comes with equally massive risks, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So as we kind of wrap up, we have to look fairly at the other side. The skeptical views, the potential dangers lurking in this compute-focused strategy.
Yeah, it's absolutely essential to look at the potential downsides, the exposure. And while the rewards have been huge so far, the risks, I think, fall into 3 main categories. The first one is the most obvious financial concern: capital intensity.
Right. We've been throwing around numbers like $500 billion commitments, building gigawatt-scale data centers that requires borrowing colossal amounts of money, whereas Oracle getting that debt. And what happens if AI demand maybe cools off unexpectedly?
That's the core question. Oracle's tapping global bond markets, specialized infrastructure financing, basically taking on enormous long-term debt obligations to build these incredibly expensive facilities. The risk is huge.
How so?
If, for some reason we can't foresee now, the pace of AI development slows down significantly, or maybe the big clients, OpenAI, Meta, they shift their strategy, perhaps develop more efficient models, needing less raw power.
Then Oracle is stuck.
Then Oracle is stuck holding the bag. They're servicing billions in construction debt, plus the massive fixed operating costs, cooling these places, maintaining them, paying specialized staff for potentially overbuilt, underutilized capacity. They are making a multi-billion-dollar bet that this exponential demand curve continues upwards for at least the next 5 to 10 years.
And that links straight into the second risk category, doesn't it? The whole bubble dynamics argument. You hear skeptics pointing to that Ouroboros loop we discussed and warning this could be like the dot-com boom back in the late 90s, just dressed up in AI clothes.
That's exactly the warning. The fear is that the sky-high valuations of the AI model makers themselves, the very valuations driving the spending that inflates Oracle's RPO, might be based more on hype than on sustainable future profits.
So even if the take-or-pay contracts guarantee the cash flow for the next 5 years.
Right, the current contracts are probably safe. But what happens after that? If the AI market deflates, if the hype cools, Oracle might struggle to sign the next round of mega contracts needed to fill that pipeline to keep justifying the expansion. They'd have all this incredibly expensive infrastructure, but maybe not the exponentially growing clientele needed to support that $900 billion plus valuation long term.
Okay, capital intensity, bubble risk. What's the third major area of risk? It feels like it goes beyond just finance.
It does. The third area is arguably the most complex and maybe the most significant long term. It's regulation, geopolitics, and crucially, energy consumption.
Ah, the energy. When you're talking about dedicating nuclear scale power to data centers, you're not just a tech company anymore, are you? You're critical national infrastructure.
Precisely. The environmental scrutiny is already intense and growing. When you announce you're dedicating 4.5 gigawatts to just one client, that raises serious questions about the strain on electricity grids, especially in places already worried about summer blackouts or water usage for cooling.
Local governments, environmental groups, they must be paying close attention.
Increasingly so. How do these massive energy sinks fit with net zero climate goals? That's a huge political and social question.
And then there's the regulatory risk from another angle, antitrust. Given the concentration of power we've detailed among just a few players?
Yes, the concentration risk is immense. Antitrust regulators in the US, Europe, elsewhere, they are definitely watching this. They might look at laws like the Sherman Act or Clayton Act, which are designed to prevent monopolies and ensure fair market competition.
And the concern is?
The concern is market access. When the absolute fundamental resource needed for the next wave of innovation, that high-performance compute power, is concentrated in the hands of just a few tightly interconnected firms, Oracle, NVIDIA, the big AI labs, they effectively become gatekeepers.
They control who gets to play.
Exactly. Can a smaller, innovative AI startup ever hope to compete if they can't afford to buy priority access to the necessary GPUs? Or if the price is set by these established giants, this concentration creates a massive barrier to entry. And that's precisely the kind of situation that tends to attract deep regulatory scrutiny, maybe even intervention down the road.
Wow, what an absolutely incredible corporate story this is. Oracle's turnaround. It really is a masterclass in timing, leveraging massive capital and having a clear, if risky, strategic vision.
It really is. You know, they were genuinely facing potential obsolescence, being pigeonholed as that legacy database company. And instead of just trying to tweak their software or chase the latest fleeting trend, they went deep, right down into the physical infrastructure layer.
The hard stuff, the expensive stuff.
The really hard stuff. They correctly saw that in this new AI landscape, the real bottleneck, the truly expensive constraint, wasn't going to be the algorithm or the software ideas. It was going to be the raw, reliable, high-performance physical capacity and the energy needed to run it all.
So they chose the unglamorous path.
The unglamorous, incredibly capital-intensive path. They decided to master the power, literally.
And critically, that financial innovation, restructuring the deals as these guaranteed long-term take-or-pay infrastructure investments, that was key. It took the risk off their books and gave the market that undeniable certainty.
That's what pumped up the RPO. That $455 billion figure is the direct result of that financial engineering combined with the massive demand.
So at the end of the day, the central finding from this deep dive seems pretty clear.
Yeah, I think so. Oracle basically chose to sell the picks and the shovels during the great AI gold rush. Their huge bet that compute power, not code, is the real king, well, it's been spectacularly validated so far.
Leading to that historic stock performance, a complete corporate rebirth.
And yeah, that incredible moment of financial supremacy for Larry Ellison, which just perfectly underscored the sheer scale of the success.
If we leave our listeners with one final thought to chew on, building on those risks we just discussed,
it has to be this. Think about the longer-term implications, not just for Oracle, but for everyone, for the global economy. What does it mean to have the fundamental infrastructure, the raw physical power, for what might become future global intelligence, concentrated in the hands of just a tiny number of interconnected, largely unregulated corporations?
what does that concentration mean for things like fair competition, for democracy, for national security?
And ultimately, who actually gets to innovate? Who gets access to build the next big thing in the coming age of AI? That fundamental question about power, both electrical and economic, is what Oracle's incredible pivot has now placed squarely on the table for all of us.